Joining us now, John Heilman, National Affairs Analyst for NBC News and MSNBC. He's the co-host and executive producer of Showtime's The Circus. Also with us is Mark Thompson, host of Make It Plain, its daily podcast. Mark, the day began with Donald Trump calling this process a lynching, only Lindsey Graham agreeing with him. What we saw in what William Taylor delivered in his opening statement was anything but a lynching.
No, it wasn't lynching at all. It's a despicable term for him to use. It's like he's channeling Clarence Thomas somehow. Aside, though, and we don't need to explain the racial insensitivity, but let's be specific. He is about to undergo a trial. Lynchings were not trials. People were executed summarily based upon allegations, which he wanted to do to the Central Park Five, now the exonerated Five. So for him to say he's a victim of a lynching when he is in the process of a trial, witnesses in his administration are testifying against him, it's patently absurd. Look, you have been more outspoken than anyone about how ridiculous he is and frankly how stupid he is. So it just doesn't work. He is being given a fair and due process, and he needs to go ahead and participate in it. And if there's any vindication, put it on the table. But I think we all know, we doubt there's any vindication whatsoever.
John Heilman, when I was hearing Donald Trump lead his crowds and encourage them in their lock her up chants, I never heard them chanting about her having a trial before they locked her up.
Yeah, you know, Lawrence, the recourse to a process argument is always the recourse of scoundrels.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, when the facts are against you, you argue the law. And in this case, obviously, you can't argue the law because this isn't really, strictly speaking, a legal proceeding. It's a political proceeding that has various kinds of protections in it. We have heard people on this show and other shows point out that the way that impeachment works is that the House side is basically designed to be like a grand jury process. It's about the collection of facts in the same way that a grand jury operates largely in secret. It adduces all the facts, and then it makes a charge. And the charge are the articles of impeachment. If they are passed, you then end up at the United States Senate, where you have a genuine trial, and you have all the, you're afforded all of the kind of due process that someone would normally get in a criminal trial. And that's what Donald Trump is surely headed now. I think there's not been a question for a while that Donald Trump was going to get impeached in the House of Representatives. Obviously, conviction is still a large question. But if there was any question in anyone's mind before today about whether Donald Trump is going to be impeached in the House of Representatives, that question has now been fully obliterated by the testimony that we learned about today.
Mark, there are two key witnesses now against Donald Trump are so far Donald Trump in his own rough transcript released by the White House of his phone call, those words of Donald Trump on that phone call, and Ambassador Taylor today.
Yeah, Ambassador Taylor, that's a compelling witness. And I'm grateful that there are some people, witnesses, and obviously those witnesses, advisors and attorneys, with the good sense to go down there and tell the truth. Everybody doesn't have to go down with the ship, and I'm glad. And it's chilling, because we didn't get that on the phone call. What Taylor said, that there needed to be a public announcement of this. Now, we could infer that from the phone call, but for him to actually know that and have been told that and for it to have been documented, that makes it even worse.
Yeah, and John, Taylor's testimony said that there was actually a plan that the president had and others involved, Sondland, to get the president of Ukraine to go on television in an interview. And in a public interview, as Trump put it, put him in a public box where he would say that they are investigating the Bidens.
Right. And, you know, look, I mean, and Taylor, of course, in his conversations with the Ukrainians, thought that was a bad idea and kind of counseled them not to want to do it. I think, you know, it is extraordinary. I mean, Lawrence, the key elements of this testimony that we learned today on both sides, the notion that it was explicit, that everything, meaning the military aid, was contingent on everything on the other side, meaning you had to investigate the Bidens, you had to investigate 2016 corruption, and that not only you had to do it, but you had to do it publicly. That all of that stuff was that explicit in the conversation with Sondland is a really devastating piece of evidence. And I do think that although the White House right now is fighting back and trying to portray Taylor as a left-wing member of the deep state, the notion of this man whose resume says that he was made ambassador to Ukraine by George W. Bush, and was reappointed as ambassador, effectively ambassador to Ukraine by Mike Pompeo. It is going to be very hard, I think, for the president's political operatives to paint this person as some kind of a Clinton, Obama, Sanders, Warren, left-wing Trotskyite member of some kind of coup attempting deep state. It just doesn't work with the man's resume.
Let me get a quick exit question as we go to this break. Mark Thompson, can William Taylor's testimony flip some Republican votes in the House of Representatives?
Yes, I think so, included with everything else, what's going on in Syria. Let's not forget about Fiona Hill's testimony. I think all of that is damning. This is pretty bad.
And John Heilemann, to the Senate, to, for example, Senator Romney, did he get in William Taylor's testimony what he said he needs to see to make a decision here?
I think it's hard to imagine Mitt Romney does not already have what he needs to see. I think he's going to want to see that trial proceed. I think the question, Lawrence, continues to be, where on the day after Thanksgiving, if this trial does begin the day after Thanksgiving, as Mitch McConnell has suggested it will, or the week after Thanksgiving, what is Donald Trump's approval rating with the general public, and what is his approval rating with the Republican Party? That will tell you what the Senate trial is going to look like politically, and whether there are going to be a few Senate votes to remove him, or maybe more.
Yeah, exactly.
Republican votes.
At that point, exactly, who does Mitch McConnell really want to have as a nominee for president in his party in the following year? Mark Thompson, John Heilemann, thank you for guiding us through this.